joined Voice of America in the late 1990s when the building still smelled faintly of paper and hot toner. His job was not glamorous. He reviewed scripts, checked references, and made sure wordings followed the same standards it always had: accuracy, attribution, balance. These were not debated much, they were habits. When a broadcast went out without complaints, it meant the system had worked. In the early years, the work felt useful. During conflicts in the Balkans and later in Afghanistan, listener letters arrived describing shortwave radios hidden in cupboards, broadcasts heard late at night. Editors saved a few of these messages and pinned them to a corkboard. It reminded everyone why the routines mattered. If language stayed careful, the signal stayed trusted. After 2001, the workload increased. New language services were added. Security reviews multiplied. Every change came with a form. He learned how to route documents so approvals moved quickly. There were correct phrases that caused fewer delays. There were others that raised questions. Nobody issued a list. You learned by watching what came back with red ink. In 2003, as the Iraq War began, the standards were tested. Scripts describing civilian casualties required extra sourcing. Editors debated verbs late into the night, but broadcasts continued. Listeners complained from all sides. This was taken as evidence of balance. The institution absorbed the strain without changing its outward shape. Years passed. Digital platforms replaced shortwave. Budgets tightened. Congress asked sharper questions. Earlier, broadcasts had vanished once aired unless someone recorded them. Now segments remained online. He began seeing draft scripts discussed outside the organization before the next broadcast cycle. Lines he had approved appeared on blogs and message boards, separate from the full segment. Internal emails forwarded screenshots instead of transcripts. A phrase that would once have passed unnoticed now returned attached to a complaint. Nobody said, "Be careful," but everyone was. In 2014, after Russia restricted Voice of America access, requests came in to expand coverage elsewhere. More languages, faster turnarounds. The old review steps were kept, even as deadlines shrank. Cutting them felt risky. They were proof of seriousness. Removing them would require explaining why safeguards were no longer needed. So they stayed. By 2018, social media mentions were tracked daily. When certain segments began circulating online, it was taken as a sign that complaints would follow. First, the post appeared, then the calls came from the congressional offices. By the time they arrived, responses were already prepared, pointing back to earlier broadcasts that had used the same wording. Those references were noted and reused the next time. Then, in February 2025, the message appeared online. The head of a newly created government department called the organization wasteful and ideological. Screenshots circulated internally before official guidance arrived. Staff were told to continue normal operations. That instruction felt stabilizing. Routine was something everyone understood. A month later, administrative leave notices were issued. Access badges stopped working. Emails bounced. He printed his reference notes before leaving the building, not knowing if he would return. Judges became involved. Orders were issued. Some staff were reinstated, others were not. The paperwork grew thicker. The steps taken against the organization did not end its work. They passed through existing procedures instead. Leave notices triggered reviews. Reviews produced filings. Filings delayed replacement plan. Each action generated a response already described somewhere in policy. What could be paused could also be reversed. Rumors followed. Programming might be replaced. External content providers were mentioned. No one confirmed anything. Meetings were careful. Memos avoided predictions. Each day, the safest action was to do what had worked before, if permitted, and to document everything. He noticed how much the organization existed on paper now: policies, archives, cross references. Even as people left, their decisions remained active through templates and guidelines. New managers relied on them because they were available. Public statements pointed back to these records defending earlier actions. Changing course would have required agreement, time, and authority that no longer seemed to exist. Continuation required no admission. Stopping would have required one. At what point does a system become easier to defend than to change? What kinds of actions remain possible once explanation itself becomes the main risk?